Hello, everyone. This is the Nameless One, and tonight we will be doing the Creator Roundup Writers 2. Before we get started, I would like to remind everybody, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. Comment on YouTube. And of course, if you enjoy the regular stuff that I do outside of the podcast, that stuff will be, with the exception of tomorrow, we will not have a Lost Memories, Second Chances. Everything will be continuing as usual this week. Other than that, let's go ahead and jump in. And I'm going to have Proceleon introduce himself first. Who you are, what you do, and first project you ever wrote.
Okay. Hello, I'm Proceleon, also known as Lightning Stripe on pony websites. Primarily, I am an artist and a game developer, but on my spare time I have done a couple of different writing projects in the past. The first writing project I ever published, that is going back a while, but it was, I think, the beginnings of a Spyro fanfiction, actually, which was, we're going back maybe a decade or more there. That was the first thing I ever published.
Okay. From one lightning stripe to the next.
Yep. Hello, everybody. I'm Lightning Stripe. I usually do YouTube videos, but it's been a while. I've done a couple writing projects here and there. My first one was, I think it was right after the pandemic. I gotta check, but it's called it's called The Last Changeling. It's actually, if you want to know more about it, go read it. Great story. Kind of biased, but great story. I've taken some time away from MLP stories, and I'm focusing on my own side project, which I might go more in depth later, but that's me. Hello.
Okay. Jack.
Hello, my name's Jack. I'm creator of Scootertrix Studios. I do a lot of comedy writing, parody stuff, a bridge series. First thing I ever wrote, I'm probably some sort of stop motion Lego thing that might be on YouTube somewhere. But I don't know. There's just it's been so long, and there's been so many things I've worked on. But I assume it's going to be some sort of like Lego Doctor Who film or something along those lines.
Okay. And Venture.
Hello. My name is Venture Core. I'm a writer. I write for the site Daily Dose of Pony, and the first thing I published. Well, before that, I've been writing since I was in high school, I would say. But the first thing I published, I didn't publish any of my writing for a while because I'm a person who's very self-critical of their own work. Like, I think it's, even after I finish, I'm like, oh, this is bad, or this looks terrible. So it took until I would say April of this year when I published The Temple, which was a Cozy Glow and Queen Chrysalis fanfic. And it was originally a Christmas gift that eventually they gave me permission to go to publish. And I liked the reception of that. I got some good feedback, but due to my self-confidence issues, it took me a while to actually start releasing my work to the public.
Okay. And of course, everybody should know who I am by now. But in case you just got here, I am the Nameless One. I've been doing writing pretty much as long as I could hold a pen. My first published work, though, would be the Shadow of the Dark Sun on fanfiction. I've been working on various projects on and off throughout my life, though. I actually lost a transcript years ago. I feel bad for anybody that had to try to decipher it because I went very much with the Tolkien style of world building. There was more world building than there was writing on that. Anyways, let's go ahead and get straight into it. So I think the first question we'll go with is we'll start off with some of my obligatory creator questions. As far as writing goes, because I know some of you do other things, but as far as writing goes, what does your creative process look like? What things do you do, and what stuff do you do to keep up with your writing progress, or whatever? However you want to say that. We'll start with Lightning. The orange one, not the purple one.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
not going to get confusing.
Lightning meet lightning.
It's
Yep.
canon. It's canon.
It was gonna happen once. It was gonna happen once. So, but yeah. So usually, it's hard to describe my thought process of how I come up with the story itself. But once I have a rough idea, I open the Google Docs and I have my own planning document that I created, and I use it as a template for everything that I make. I'm trying to find it right now. But it's basically like, here it is. It's basically like title ideas, a rough summary of the whole thing, and then a one sentence summary by chapter when it's a a several chapter story. And then I do an overview, which is a bullet point step by step of each scene that I want to have in the story. And once I'm done with this planning document, that's when I actually start writing.
So you go for
Now I usually
the more structured approach.
I try. For my current work in progress, I don't think for anything that I've written, I've finished the writing template. So I start it until I'm at a comfortable amount. I at least have all the chapter summaries done. So I have the one sentence summary by chapter. Once I'm done with that, I start writing. And then I use the overview, like the bullet point step by step process, to really to really keep my head in place, because otherwise I will go all over the place. And then outside of that, I am constantly thinking. I'm constantly thinking of character development, literally anything. Usually all my MLP stuff is all fan fiction, so usually I focus on characters that already exist and how I can alter the person, or not alter, how I can show their emotions and their personality to make sense within my story. This new work in progress is all original characters. It's not MLP. I'll probably go in depth later. I'm just trying to answer the question right now and not ramble as much as I am right now. But for that, I'm always thinking songs help. I think every writer can say the things that you come up with when listening to random music on Spotify or whatever is amazing.
It's actually why I like using YouTube Music, because you can get the most random stuff for fan made music.
Usually it's not, well, for MLP I don't use music because I already have everything in my head. But for my original works, I have several Spotify playlists, And then whenever I want, I scroll down on my computer to the recommended list, or I go to the what's it called? Sometimes mobile and the mobile app and the desktop app are weird. Anyone who has Spotify knows this. One is clearly better than the other. But I have a way of just randomizing songs. And if I find something that fits, I was like, ooh, this is great, and I save it to the playlist. And I just listen to that whole playlist on shuffle, and I'll just think of scenes in my head. And after that, I'll usually write it down. Sometimes I won't, and it'll eventually lose itself to like more of a blur than a step-by-step scene. That's basically it. I'm gonna stop rambling now and let probably.
Venture.
Oh, okay.
Well, sometimes I like to have. I am of the belief that planning as much as possible is helpful. I don't think that you need to plan out every single thing you do, or else you're just going to drive yourself insane. But I will admit that. Okay, I like to make a timeline of things, but I'd say like 40 to 50% of my writing is just making my things up as I go along. And sometimes that creates plot holes, which is why I don't like to release my work one chapter at a time. I like to write the whole thing and then release it. But usually I'll get an idea for something from various sources. I like to read fanfics on fanfiction. I'm one of those people who dreams are an inspiration for writing. It does happen. Usually I'll take notes. If I really like an idea, I'll start making a timeline for it. I do have difficulty sticking with stuff because I'm one of those people who likes to start projects but I have trouble finishing them. The current one I'm working on is the most I've gotten with a project in a while, and that's because I didn't fall off of it. I stuck with it. I kept adding notes. I kept, adding to the timeline. So, sticking with a project is hard, but getting started is hard as well.
Okay. Lightning strike, but purple. I'm going to keep this up.
Okay, so it's how I structure my stuff, right?
Pretty much anything you do to that could be considered part of the creative process for your writing.
Well, usually it starts with like a rough idea or a rough theme that I want to get across, like a particular story that I want to tell, or a character that I want to go more in depth with, or something like that. For the Shadow Key, which is my current work in progress, I promise that is not as edgy as it sounds. I had.
We have the Shadow Key, and then we have the Shadow of the Dark Sun. So.
For the Shadow Key, I had a lot of characters lying around from 2018, 2019, when I joined the fandom. I had started making all of these characters, and I kind of made my own main six, I suppose you could say. So I originally wanted to put them in a comic. The idea started off as a comic originally. That kind of fell through. So it's kind of become a fan fiction. But because it was originally a comic, I sort of have a pre-made format. So I have a beginning, I have an end, and this is what I normally do with comics to begin with. I have the beginning and I have the end, and then I have like a rough skeleton of the story as it goes through the motions. So what I will usually do is take all those like story bones and like arrange them in a way that makes sense. Which I am still tweaking, but that's how it usually starts, with a beginning, an end, and a goal.
Okay. And Jack.
So in regards to parody writing and comedy writing, because I have I guess a more similar strategy to everyone here when it comes to I guess my own original projects. But for the more comedic stuff, I'm either inspired by the muses at work, or in the shower or something, where there's a sketch or a joke or something that I really like, and I'm like, yep, that needs to exist. I'll kind of start with that. Sometimes I'll start with a thumbnail. I do parody stuff, so I'll take a funny thumbnail from the videos I work on. I'm like, I could make a video out of this, and I kind of go from there. I'll generally have broad strokes of where I want to go with a video or a concept, but when it comes to actually writing and getting down the details and connecting all of the scenes and bits, I really just have to sit down and I have to comb over the script over and over again, and smooth it out, voice act everything, and get, like read all the lines out loud, basically, to make sure all the timing and everything is right, until it just sounds right and it feels like it's ready to go.
Okay. And, since I'm a writer too, I'm gonna also answer this question. For me, most of the time it is concept happens, whether somebody says something, I see a video or a picture or whatever happens to be the inspiration, and then I just sit down and write. I'm apparently one of the weird ones where I don't do all of the extra outlines and things like that, which is something that you can do, but both directions kind of tend to have issues. When it comes to the structure type, you can run into the issue that a lot of people like to call the Tolkien problem, where you're sitting there building things out, and it especially happens in world building, where by the time you're done, you have your own Silmarillion, but you haven't written anything. And then with mine, you have to be very careful to not only reread everything you've written and make sure you don't, screw it up, but you also have to make sure that as you're writing it, you're paying attention to like the things like rules for power systems or magic systems that you're laying out and stuff like that, so that you're not breaking your own rules in a way that invalidates them. Stuff like that. Often you have to like do a lot more legwork when it comes to like putting down a project than coming back to it, because like for me, when I start writing Shadow of the Dark Sun again, because it's been a long time since I actually worked on that project, I'm going to need to go back and reread everything that I've written so far, just to make sure that I'm on the same page that I was back when I first started it. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next question, which I think this one will be, when it comes to writing, what is your biggest piece of advice to new writers? And we're going to start with Jack.
Oh, no. Piece of advice for writers. I think just write. I know that's so simple, but I honestly think the hardest part of writing is you need to actually just sit down and write. I struggle with this so much. But honestly, it's the only thing I can think of in term, and even like in terms of dealing with writer's block too. It's just you just have to write.
I mean, you don't have any specific insight on comedic writing? Because you do comedy writing, which is something that very easily can be done wrong.
That's true. So my particular style with comedic writing is I think the key to comedy, it's not so much you're trying to tell jokes, you're trying to write funny people in awkward situations. You know, like think of comedians, right? Comedians don't tell jokes, or the best comedians don't tell jokes. They're just funny people. You know, so you take, for example, so I've got a character. In my parody series, it's the G180s My Little Ponies, and then there's some human characters, and there's Megan, who's a human character. And so I have Megan, who's this very serious, kind of doesn't want any nonsense, kind of very, you know, sort of a straight man character. And she's put in the situation where she's surrounded by these very cheerful, optimistic, always talking, colorful ponies. And it's the worst nightmare scenario for her. So there's just comedy there, basically. You know, so yeah, that's really just what I do is I have different personalities with different characters, and like what would be a great situation to put them in where it's just going to be a nightmare for them. And oftentimes, you know, the gags and humor will write themselves because the character's just there. That's how they're designed.
Okay. I'm going to say lightning. Whichever one starts speaking first gets to say it first. And of course,
Okay,
now they're both.
I guess I'm going. So
Yeah, you can go
my
first,
headphones
Orange.
lagged when you were. My headphones lagged for some reason when you were asking the question, but I believe it was, like
Your advice
Quick,
to
quick,
new
quick.
writers.
my advice. Okay, all right. Oh, to new writers. Okay. Well, since we already did the just right, I'm gonna give one that I always tell my close friends who are trying to get into writing, and it is know how the story ends before you get really into it, because a lot of times I see some of my friends start writing these projects that they saw, like they found a writing prompt on Pinterest, and they really like it and they start writing it, but the issue is they don't know they don't necessarily know where they want to take the story, right? The idea of it might be the greatest thing in the whole world, but if you don't know where the story is going, you can't get it going, right? So I think that's my advice. Know where you're going before you start.
Okay. And I'm gonna let Venture go next, and then we'll let the other lightning go. I'm having way too much fun with this.
Oh, yeah, I can tell. I would say, it's a combination of stay committed, but also don't fall into the sunk cost fallacy, where I've invested so much into this work I have to finish it. And by that I mean if you know that you're not happy with your work or you think you need to do rewrites, please don't put those off. Now, I'm not saying you have to rewrite everything you're unhappy with or else you'll never get stuff done. But if you don't do that, it's going to be harder and harder to fix or revise those issues as you write the story more. It's like working with quick hardening cement. Like when you first use it, it's easy to modify to your taste, but as you use it more and more, the harder it becomes to change until you can't change it without breaking large parts of your story.
I believe
So-
that a popular term is "don't be afraid to kill your darlings."
That works too.
We always say
But-
kill babies, but yeah.
I mean, I was trying to be soft order, but yeah, sure. But anyway, that's my advice.
We recommend killing babies here.
They said it, not me.
Actually, I'm gonna before we let Proceleon go, I'm gonna actually say a little bit more on that. The with the sunk cost fallacy and all of that, sometimes a project may have been more than you wanted to actually write. It sounded cool at the time, and sometimes you just gotta take a step back and go, yeah, I can't, I don't want to write this story, I can't write this story, whatever it happens to be. Just make sure that if that is the case, that you make sure that it's not just because, oh, I have writer's block, or oh, I'm just tired today and I don't feel like writing anything. And this is the kind of stuff that you need to like maybe do a little introspection during your writing. Make sure that it's what you want to write, and also try not to do this kind of stuff on when you're having a bad day, because that's always the day that you never want to write. You'll be like, oh, I just had a terrible day. Sit down to write, and like, I don't want to be here. So try to keep that in mind when it comes to the sunk cost fallacy and stuff like that. Because some days you just won't want to write, and other days you'll be like champing at the bit to write, and it's like 3 a.m. You have to go to bed. I'm totally not speaking from experience on that one. Anyways, other lightning.
Ooh, yeah, so you've had just right. Sunk cost. You really haven't left me with much, to be fair. I guess something I could add to that would be definitely do some research into like literary techniques or things that you might be overusing or in some cases misusing. I know that before I started writing, I had absolutely no idea what an epithet was. And once I learned what an epithet was, I immediately went back and realized, oh, I use those way too much.
So, for the audience's sake, why do you explain what that is?
I should. Basically, an epithet is a descriptive term that is used in the place of a name or pronoun. So instead of saying, like, Twilight or she did such and such, you might say, the purple unicorn did whatever. And, sorry, stop reading. And apparently people often overuse the descriptive terms. They will describe the character rather than using a just the name or the pronoun. And I've discovered that what that does is often lead to very much a distant feeling between the reader and the character, which I suppose could be used in an effective way, but definitely overusing it is a mistake that I made. I'm
actually gonna help out with my opinion on that one, specifically the epithet thing. That's something you would want to use when you have a sentence or paragraph where you're saying she or the name of the character quite often, so that way you can actually break it up a little, so it's not all the same thing, because repetitiveness will also turn off a reader on whatever you're trying to write.
Yeah, if that's the case, and I'm using like character terms very often, maybe that's a cue that I need to restructure the sentence entirely so that it's less repetitive. Because that is also something that I've run into quite a lot, is using the same structure for sentences.
Yeah, repetitiveness will often chase off certain readers.
So definitely do some research on what the more common mistakes are, and learn about some writing terminology and writing techniques that you might be able to incorporate into the work.
A couple of YouTube channels that I highly recommend if you were looking for stuff like what Lightning just mentioned are Tale Foundry and Terrible Writing Advice. The two of them do a very good job as long as you can like deal with sarcasm from Terrible Writing Advice. It will be something that will be a godsend for especially amateur or new writers. And even as somebody who is an experienced writer, I still use them as resources. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Proceleon?
Well, when I first started looking into writing, I know one of the first writing channels that I got recommended was Jenna Moresi, who is actually a published writer. She's published a couple of books herself, like physically. So, hearing it from someone who's actually completed and sold a book definitely gives it a lot more weight than just somebody yelling into a microphone, you know?
Yeah. I do have something that's kind of adding on to what you just said, but at the same time, a little different. So I'm gonna start with like basically the headline of it: read everything. And I'm not talking about just reading. There's a specific type of reading skill known as analytical reading, or like, I believe analytical is correct as far as I can remember. But it's basically the idea that you're not just reading for entertainment. You're not just reading to read it. You're reading and like analyzing the concepts and ideas, the things that they did to execute. If you read a good book that you really enjoyed, that you really got into, you go back over it and like look at how they did what they did to draw you in, how they structured the metaphors and similes, and how they put together like sentence structure in a way that was pleasant for you to read as a reader. Or if it's a bad book, doing the same thing, but for figuring out what went wrong. Doing this will also make it so that you can look at your own writing and go, oh God, I just did the thing that I hated in that one book. Let me rewrite that. The skills of reading and writing go very much hand in hand.
Yeah, because you got to think about the reader experience too.
Mm-hmm. And there are people that will write things that it's not meant for the reader. It's just kind of something that they felt like writing. But you also find that alienates the most readers. And if you want something to be published, something for others to consume besides yourself, then you need to keep it in mind that you aren't just writing for you. You have to think of it when you write it, both how you want to say it and how is the best way for you to say it in a way that you feel okay with, but still gets your point across.
Oh! I did just think about something else. If you can, get beta readers. Get beta readers.
The dev is coming out.
Absolutely.
I can hear the game dev coming out there.
Get like proofreaders.
There we go.
Well,
That's
I've got
the word.
proofreaders. You better believe me, I got proofreaders.
If I'm not bringing everyone in my friend group into reading my story, I am not having a good day.
So that's like a call for help, basically?
The main thing that I would add on to the having proofreaders is also listen to your proofreaders. if all of them decide to tell you that something about what you're writing is not great, or if you have like 3, 4, 5, 6 people that have read your thing and all go, "What the hell was this?" You may want to like double check like what you're writing. There are some projects that I've been helping work because I do editing work for people. The project itself is meant to be kind of a what the fuck in the structure. If this is your first project writing, try to stick with something pretty traditional before you branch out into the crazy shit. And just because a word sounds fancy doesn't mean that either A, it means what you think it means, or B, everybody's going to take it the way that you meant it. So those are some things to also look out for. Okay, let me.
Before we move on, Lameless, I have a there's a blog that I've been following. It's called School of Plot. I've been reading a bunch of the stuff lately, and it has really helped me up my writing game. Again, it's called School of Plot for anyone who's watching that wants to take a look. It's really interesting. They cover. Let me take a look at it again because it's been a while. They have like workbooks to help organize things, conflicts, facts, ways to figure out your character voice, which is really important. They have everything. Just go check it out. It's really great. You can go ahead, Nameless.
I feel like at this point I should start making a pinned comment with just all of the resources that I either have other people mention or I mention during, so specifically the writer one most of the time, because it's the one that I normally bring up Tail Foundry and terrible writing advice, and then everybody else is like, "Oh, I got this and I got this." I'm like,
yeah.
One of these days,
honestly, that would just be helpful in general.
Yeah.
You should do that.
I mean, I'd argue that there's value to be had of reading bad stories, so you know what not to do.
I mean, yeah, that's basically what I said. Is like part of the analytical reading skill is being able to also tell what's bad. And that even applies to Jack, who's probably feeling like he signed on to the wrong podcast.
Oh no, I do tons of writing. No, this I'm in agreement with pretty much everything everyone's saying. So
yes, but I am poking fun at you because everybody thinks writer, they think fanfic.
Oh yeah,
I'm
more script. Yeah, when you said make sure to write so that other people can read it, I definitely don't do that because oftentimes I'm the only one reading the script. So I definitely write for me, but that's just because no one's going to see the script; they're going to see the final thing. So
yeah, I've done script writing. I know how it is. I definitely have written things.
Do you really?
Yeah, I've definitely written some scripts that anybody else tried to read them, they'd think it's illegible. It's like the intelligent write this script, maybe. So next thing we're gonna do is kind of a 2-part question. First part: what is the most difficult thing for you as a writer to get over, whether that be like structure or vocabulary or whatever? Timing for Jack. And what is, in your opinion, the most important part of writing? And we're going to actually start with picking on Jack first.
Oh, man. Again. I think the answer to both questions is probably sitting down to write. But for the... for the most difficult thing, aside from just sitting down and writing, just actually sitting down and writing, like the writing part is fine. is I'm having a lot of trouble, and this is more not with the comedic stuff, but more with the original work. It's trying to think of themes and tried to because I keep hearing this from the various videos and stuff I watch, where it's like you got to think of a theme, and then all the characters have to represent some part of that theme, and then you have to kind of build your story out that way, where everything is sort of necessary to the story and the project. You can't have just random elements out there, and that's really the hardest thing. Because I'm trying to write original pilots and stuff, and it's very difficult to kind of build things out from that angle, I guess. Where I've just sort of hit brick wall after brick wall on that, so that's probably the most challenging thing for me. But otherwise, it's actually sitting down to write. Again, that probably answers both questions.
So with I'm actually gonna poke you with this one. With the theme thing,
Sure.
Are you having issues with like tying characters into the theme, or just like picking a theme in general?
I think it's picking a theme in general, because I get to a point where it's like, oh, this would be great, and this would be great, and like 3 themes that would be really great. But
Are
then
they
it's
related?
like, somewhat, sometimes. But often the problem is I'll have, and maybe I should, maybe the hardest part is killing babies, because it's like I'll have characters that I really like, where it's like, oh, 2 of the characters really mesh well with this theme, but then this character really meshes well with this theme, and it's kind of a what's the phrase, where it's like you have two barrels of hay and a donkey in the middle, and it's like if it doesn't choose, which hay does it go for? It's kind of one of those situations. Yeah, exactly. I think it's that situation, and I just need to pick a theme and kill some babies. Maybe that's it. Maybe killing babies is the hardest part.
So I will actually say that if the themes are very closely connected, you can actually have multiple themes as long as you explore all of them adequately. A lot of long-running series will do stuff like that, where they will tie themes together and explore them, except they might do it in spans of time that are like not for specifically for like TV show style series where they have lots of episodes. You can use multiple themes as long as the themes are then eventually explored. What you really want to stay away from is things like, oh, this, and this, but we only ever use this. If you build some, I believe the term is Chekhov's gun. If you have the shotgun on the mantle, they need to use it at some point.
Yep, use it all the time.
But it's one of those that you can have multiple themes, especially if you're trying to make a series. It's just finding the place to have them pay off. So
yeah, I'm just a little worried that if the story isn't focused, it'll get muddied. But I definitely see what you're saying, because yeah, of course, shows have multiple themes. Maybe I'm just too. Yeah, maybe I just need to kind of get my feet wet there.
My argument would be that you want to have you want to have your overarching theme. So the big theme, like for example with My Little Pony, it was friendship is magic. That's the big overarching theme. But inside each episode, they have their own minor theme. So each time you have a different theme that it explores. Sometimes it'll span 1 or 2 episodes, but for the most part, they were very episodic. And towards the end, they I believe it's called serializing, where they would stretch themes across further episodes. But you can explore lots of different themes as long as in some way you can eventually tie it back to the original theme in a way that is satisfying and makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it's like friendship's kind of the theme, and then episodes I would assume are the aspects of that theme, or it's like exploring different ideas involving that theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am going to go ahead and see which lightning speaks up first.
Yeah, pick on someone else now.
So you said it was a 2-part question?
Yeah, so what's the hardest thing for you as a writer, and then the thing that you believe is the most important as a writer?
Well, hardest thing. I think the main thing that I've been having a problem with, and I think this has been a persistent issue, the way I've structured the book that I'm currently reading or writing, is making sure that all of the main characters have like enough time in the spotlight and nobody really gets left behind. Because I have realized as I've been going through the notes, there is definitely one character in my story that I have not given much attention to, and it is one of those main 6. I need to find a place to like highlight what she's about. So spreading the attention equally, I suppose you could say. And I've definitely. Oh, that's the other thing I was wanting to say. I have struggled a lot with how to begin and sometimes end a sequence, like an individual scene. Because there have been times where I've finished a scene, go on to the next chapter, and how one thing transitions into the other, I have completely blanked on. It's like I know what needs to happen, and I know what needs to happen after that, but I don't know how you get from A to B. That is something that I've needed to write and rewrite, like sometimes 5 or 6 times to get it the way I want it, or to get it sounding natural. So I suppose the big answer there is structure.
Okay. So, do you have anything else to add before I start jabbing you two?
I don't know whether I don't know whether I really have any input on what the most important part of writing is. I mean, not that we didn't cover most of what that is in the advice segment.
Okay.
We kind of covered a lot of it there.
So I put Jack on the hot seat. It's your turn. So, as you may have already noticed, I am a very passionate writer who has been doing this for a while. So I cannot resist the poke at the problem. With your characters, are you running into the issue that there's just so many of them that you're having issues? And another question would be, if that character wasn't in the story, would it change the story? Because this almost sounds like
you're directing that at me, right?
Yes, you.
Yeah. But they are kind of important because, like I said, they are one of that main six. Like
Are they
they
important?
they are like parallels to they're like parallels to the other main sixes, so they kind of mirror the ones that have come before. This is set like way after the rest of the show. This is like before the last problem, basically, is when this is set. So that theme of having the main six there and the elements of harmony being there, that's something that is quite important.
Okay.
The main thing I'm running into is I need space to flesh her out, and I've been giving a lot of stories to the other characters, and just kind of overlooking them, essentially.
Oh no, is this the Applejack stand-in?
Somebody beat me to the punch on that one.
I mean, she's important in other stories, but the problem is she doesn't have like a moment to herself. I say other stories. I should probably be saying chapters.
So, my thing with this really does sound like one of those, like, there's 6 of them because they're the main 6. But it sounds like you're struggling with giving 6 stories, for lack of a better way to say it. I don't really know, like, how easy it would be to write a story with 6 main characters, because normally I stick to at most 3. And then anybody else's minor character or side character or however you want to say it. Like there's a hierarchy of importance. And if you have too many of them and you don't characterize them properly, it begins to get to the point where it's like, oh yeah, there's this one, and I believe there's some more, but we don't care about them.
There's this one, and there's Applejack.
Yeah. You laugh, but I think that because of how the story for Applejack was treated, it often ends up lending to that idea of best background pony, or however you want to say it, where she basically doesn't have a story compared to the rest of them. It also tends to lean into, like, because they don't get characterized as much as the rest of them, they seem to have less issues and need less characterization. So they end up becoming more flat.
Yeah, it's like I said, she is important to other characters' stories. So I think the issue is that most of the characterization happens in. I keep saying stories. Why do I keep doing it? The other chapters that she's involved with, most of the characterization happens there, and I haven't like dedicated.
So by the sounds of it, you've written a static background character. You know what I mean by static, right?
Yeah, probably.
I'm going to define it anyways, so you don't have to admit it, and I can let the audience know what I'm talking about. So there's two primary types of character: a static or a dynamic character. A static character is not really changed by the course of the story. They come into the story one way and they leave that way at the end of the story. And then a dynamic character is generally your main character, the character that, they start the story, and then throughout the course of the story, it shapes who they are, changes them somehow. Static characters are generally used for like background NPC types, or like side characters that are never meant to be more than side characters. And it kind of sounds like it's, whether you meant to or not, you've written your your Applejack there into a static background character.
Yeah, I think the problem also arises from you remember how I mentioned it was originally a comic.
Yes.
This might be something the others can weigh in on over there. I see you're being left alone, but basically, I wanted a certain number of chapters because normally comics will be like predetermined at a set number of issues or a set number of chapters. So I set my chapter count very early on, and that is the number of chapters that I'm trying to fill up. The free space that I have at the moment is basically a byproduct of me realizing that 2 of my chapters could just be rolled into one. Because I have one chapter that's basically empty.
My recommendation for that is
But,
to.
like I said, it's just structure.
My recommendation is
I've
to.
like over-structured, I think is what it's.
Yeah,
what
you've
I've
done the Tolkien thing, but instead of world building, you've put yourself in a box and you don't want to let yourself out. You should probably not do that, so that you have the freedom to actually explore things more in a way that is like less about filling a chapter quota and more about just writing the story. That's my recommendation. And yes, I'm going to do this to all the rest of you too, because this is just the way I am. Anyways, you had anything else, Proceleon, or do I get to pick on Venture now?
Go and pick on the others. I think I've taken up a bit too much time. Thematically enough.
Nonsense. Anyways, Venture. Do you remember the question?
Unfortunately not, because of the other people. Not to dog on the other people, but there was a lot of conversation there, so I forgot what it was.
I already had a feeling. The question was two-parter. First part is, what's the hardest part of writing for you? And then, in your opinion, what is the most important part of writing?
Well, the hardest part for me, initially it was how to end a story, because I was great at starting stories, but terrible with endings. I find that deciding the ending ahead of time is helpful in that regard. So now I would say the hardest part is getting tying all the plot threads together, making sure everything adds up. Like, okay, chances are you'll have 1 or 2 red herrings in your story, but I also want to make sure that everything is connected and you don't accidentally mislead the reader on when the story's going to go, because I would hate, you know, I don't mind subverting expectations, but I want to do that on purpose, not accidentally. I don't give the reader the wrong idea, so that's where I've struggled in my story. But and also the most important thing when it comes to writing, outside of planning, honestly, I would say, and I think this has been brought up on a couple of things. Why are you nameless? Have the characters act how they would act and not how you would act in a story.
Unless the character is.
Oh, well, unless the character is literally you.
That is a thing, so.
Yeah, it is, but I struggle with that, especially when I play D&D. Like, I roleplay as myself rather than roleplay how the character would act, and I need to be better at, no, this is how this character would act in this situation. This is not, unless this character, shares the same values and would do the same thing as me. I think, like, have your characters act in character. Don't let them act out of character.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed about a lot of writers, that they either are really good at stepping out of their own shoes into the shoes of their character, or you get the ones that it's like this character is just you with a funny hat on, isn't it? I've found that a lot of people will also, like readers, will also have a idealized vision of what they think a character should be. A big example is if everybody remembers I mean, I hope you'd remember the My Little Pony movie, but the scene where everybody says that it was a character assassination of Twilight, it really wasn't. If
I don't think it was.
I know that it's a huge thing in of contention in the fandom, but if you look at the surrounding situation that she was in, I'm pretty sure that most of us would have done something similar, because the diplomatic avenue was basically shut down, and she didn't know her friends were going to change the queen's mind. So next best thing, take it for yourself and go deal with the problem. You can bring it back afterwards, and it's generally considered to ask for forgiveness. I forget the full term. Ask for
Reconciliation.
no, it's like ask for forgiveness rather than the permission. Where it's basically you do the thing and then ask for ask for forgiveness, not permission. Thank you, Ice. Otherwise, I don't really have much to jab you for, because I'm also really bad about finishing projects. Like, really bad.
I guess something else I struggle with is tying scenes together. Because sometimes, I admit I have a habit of sometimes writing my stories out of order. And I'm like, okay, I have this really cool scene set up, but how do we fill in the gap? Like, how do we get to this scene?
I mean, sometimes what most people call a jump cut or a smash cut is not an inappropriate way to do that. If the scene is finished, you don't have to spend the time to have them walking to the next scene, because then it just becomes the Tolkien movie problem, where you have hours of scenes of just them walking over pretty landscape. So, sometimes it's good to cut from one scene to the next, as long as it makes logical sense and you set it up. Other lightning.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Just to cut in real quick, for back when I was doing Scootertrix, I'd often have two different scenes going on at the same time, and so what would be really useful is like, if I can't connect two parts of this one scene, I interject. That's when I put in like a clip from this other conversation going on. So like I used to do like the Celestia and Luna scenes in their castle. They would always interject and kind of help out with that. So yeah, definitely agree with that.
Other lightning.
Yay! So the hardest part of a story. I guess there's the classic sitting down and actually writing it.
Yeah,
'Cause
but I'm
having
pretty sure all of
ADHD as
us
a writer-
could.
Yeah. And having ADHD does not help at all.
Not really.
Nope. I think there's in my more recent project, I'm having kind of the opposite problem of the other lightning, where I'm trying to keep background characters as background characters, even though I love them very much. I'm trying to make sure that I give the spotlight to the three main characters, and not like I want to give some light to the background characters, so they each have their own interesting story in the background. But I want to make sure it stays in the background,
So I'm going to interject a bit and say this, but I like to characterize, like, there's three different types of character. You've got your main character, your your main characters, so like your antagonist, protagonist, and like the main group of people that are the story is about. You've got your background characters, which are the ones that are just set dressing at like absolute most. And then you have the ones that I call side characters, which are the ones that have stories that people care about. It's not just random bartender number 83 or fucking random Smith number 87. This is like Bob the Builder or whatever. You know the name, you know the backstory. You don't go too in depth, but you give them just enough to want to feel at least somewhat invested in their existence.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it.
All right. I already wrote that down. One thing that I do often is I fall down the rabbit hole of I end up creating the side character's whole backstory and I want to share it with everyone. But then I'm like, how would I fit this into the story? And sometimes I realize that I can't fit it in the way that I have it formatted currently. And so I either have to not include it or figure out a way to format it where I can show their story without it interjecting with the main storyline.
That's what short stories are.
That's what spin-offs are for.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Next thing you know, you
that is-
have an entire
that is-
franchise.
Yeah. That's not just forgotten detail. That's another story waiting to happen.
Yeah.
That you can write another time.
Indeed. I have a couple things. I have like a short story that I wrote for class on my current work in progress. I don't know if I'm gonna have time in this podcast, or if you'll let me, nameless, just talk for like 10 to 15 minutes, maybe at the end, about my current work in progress, if that would be possible. If not, that's fine. I'll probably get around to making a video about it eventually.
Yeah, we'll see how much time we have when we get there.
All right. Well, anyways, the most important part of a story, aside from sitting down and writing it, I guess like I said in in the advice section, is knowing where you're going before you start going, right? You might not know where, like, you have a beginning, middle, and end. You might not have the in betweens, but you gotta have at least the beginning and the end, then the middle, and then like, you gotta figure out where you want the scene to go. If you have you can have a great scene, but there needs to be some sort of flow. It needs to be going somewhere, right? And I have a friend who writes a lot, and he tends to write without the ending in mind. And so he has this beautiful scene, and then he ends up like throwing away the project because he gets writer's block, and he has no idea where the story is gonna go. So I always tell him, you have to know how the story is gonna end. Yeah, that's it. Same thing as I said for the advice section.
Okay, so my turn. Feel free to jab fun at me if you have anything to say about it. But so hardest things for me, well, besides finding the time to actually sit down and write, because like it's not even like I don't have the motivation. Right now, I am taking care of somebody else's dog, and it took me 3 hours to read a short story because I spent most of the time trying to fend him off while I was sitting in my chair. So that has been very, like, I have projects that I want to work on that I haven't been able to do.
I feel that.
But past that, one of the issues that I have is that, yes, structure can be good for some people, but for me, it becomes a problem very quickly. Actually, some of my players from my campaign will realize this if they've heard me talk about it. Once I write something down, for whatever reason in my head, it is just set in stone. It has to happen that way. And thus, I will essentially build myself a box and then look outside the box and go, no, the box is here. And sometimes that can be very detrimental. I also have a tendency when it comes to world building, if I start writing too much down, I get that Tolkien problem where by the time I'm done, I'll have enough of a world built that I could write a whole Silmarillion about it, but then the story hadn't gotten past chapter 2. That was the transcript that I lost from when I was a kid. That is what that was. I had just shy of starting to work on my own conlang, stuff like that. It was a ridiculous amount of world building that I never actually put a story to fully. So I run into that issue. Because I'm also one of the types that I can sit down with a concept, just the concept, no beginning, no end, and start writing. Then again, I've also been told that I have a gift with writing from multiple people, including an English professor. You know, that one time where it actually sinks in is when somebody that's been doing teaching for writing for 40 years goes, "Don't stop. You have a gift." But yeah, with that, like, structure seems to be my worst enemy. As for the most important thing, I think, and this specifically applies to novel style writing, but I could see it being used in some of the script writing, like what Jack does. Imagery. Now, if you don't know what imagery is, if you've ever heard the phrase "show don't tell" and go, "How do you do that for writing?" That's what I'm talking about. If you tell somebody that, you know, it's a warm summer day, that's the show. That's not showing. That's telling. If you tell them, like, about the warm summer day, describe the heat, describe the things going on. I did one scene once as an example for somebody where I basically described a scene in a library where I described the light as, like, the way it looked is like essentially pixies dancing on the air kind of deal. That kind of stuff is extremely important to draw in a reader, to, like, immerse them in your world. Because if you just go telling them, yes, the pony is blue or purple or whatever color and tall, that's not interesting. Using things like metaphors, similes, all of this stuff that you generally get told is like poetry's things, that kind of stuff will build essentially build a picture for the reader without using art. It uses words. And yes, I know writing is still art, but, you know, when I say art, I mean, like, drawings. But with imagery, it is something that can actually make or break certain types of writing. And there is often places where it can be overused. So it's one of those things, it's a balancing act that you need to learn where it should and should not be.
Yeah, I've definitely been reading fanfics where they've used way too many flowery words, and I've completely lost track of what was actually happening.
See, it's appropriate if you have, say, a scene where, like, what's happening around them is not important, and you just tell them it's like, oh, it's raining outside, rather than using flowery language to describe the day. If you're setting a scene, though, like the initial setting of a scene, it's okay to go into, like, flowery language. Again, only if you know what those words mean. Because if you start using words you don't know the meaning of, you could end up with some very interesting things happening that you were not aware of.
Yeah, you could have flowers be eloquent dancers. Or the Jabot wish was just too easy. I apologize.
Eloquent dancers?
Disney's wish. They actually used that in one of the lyrics.
God, I didn't like that film.
I haven't seen it.
I started halfway with my brother, and I had to go do something else, so I haven't finished. I assume it gets worse.
I have no clue. I've never seen it.
The fact that I was able to guess the main plot point, and then it got to it, and I was like, wait, that's not it. Why is this not it? It's a whole thing.
Anyway.
That is also something that I would like to bring up for writers as well. Don't be afraid to use pre-established structures, but if you want your story to be interesting, throw a few plot twists in there that make sense, but also subvert some of the expectation of the reader. Because either you have to do the thing that they're expecting well enough that it's not just generic, or you need to throw something in there to essentially make yourself stand out.
It
Yeah,
can be
but-
shocking, but it needs to make sense.
What were you going to say, Jack?
Oh, yeah, the reason why we have so many like famous tropes is because they work. They're effective. But yeah, it's right. You have to switch it up a little bit. But yeah, definitely don't be afraid to use structure and cliches. You just have to, you have to do something a little different with them. But yeah, definitely don't be afraid to do that.
And I think the last thing I'm going to bring up that I actually recently heard somebody say, it was my English professor actually, don't write with the assumption that your readers are stupid, but also don't write for the highest common denominator. So, like, write for the people that are, like, just your average type of people, where they understand English, but they're not going to know what an ignoramus is. So you're not writing for the philosophy majors of the world. You don't need to like wax poetic about things that if the people that read it that know what they're talking about read it and go, oh, this person is trying really hard to appeal to me, but they're wrong too. Or the person that's your more likely audience is going to go, I don't understand anything that just happened here, and now I'm bored.
That just hit me really hard.
That's
Because one of the writing, I suppose writing gimmicks, you could say that I'm kind of developing with one of the characters in my story is that when she gets like worked up or stressed or something like that, when it's heightened emotions, she starts to use very like multisyllabic, very advanced words, and that's I wanted that to be like a whole thing.
My biggest advice on that is don't overuse it and make sure you actually know what the word means. Because if that character's meant to be intelligent enough that they understand the words, then don't use a word that you don't know what it means to. Webster's Dictionary will be your friend.
I look up everything before I edit.
Let me see. So I've actually noticed that sometimes the guests will have questions for each other. So I'm going to actually start trying to do this more often. But do you guys have any questions for each other or me? And then we'll go on to the audience members, see if they have any questions.
Who's the real Lightning?
Fight.
I think you two should fight to the
Mm.
death. Fight to the death.
I like how immediately everybody's
got
like,
there a
fight
little-
to the death!
Typical caged
Um,
match.
I got one. How do you all write dialogue?
Ooh, that's an interesting.
Oh, that's an
Great
interesting
difficulty.
Here, I'd like to follow up. Do you guys only have one character speak per paragraph, or do you have multiple characters speak in the same paragraph?
Technically, I do because it's a script. So yes, one character per paragraph.
Same with me. I try to keep one character per paragraph. One thing that I've recently seen, one thing that I've recently seen from reading books, mostly Percy Jackson, which is what I'm into lately, is I can have a character speak at the beginning of a paragraph, and have the paragraph be like pretty big, and then have him continue speaking at the end. That's a thing I can do, which I didn't realize until a while ago. So I use it sometimes. I
That's
haven't
funny.
used it that much.
That's funny you say that, is because I don't remember how long ago it was, but somebody eventually like told me, he was an English major, and he told me, creative writing specifically, that with dialogue, you either start with it in the middle of the paragraph and you leave it that way, and then the next paragraph you can switch it up, or you start with it at the beginning and end of the paragraph and you leave it that way, and always have the paragraph be the one character speaking.
We're talking like when a new character speaks, it's a new line, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I was-
That's one of the structural things that I've always stuck to. And unless it's deliberately denoted that it's like two characters speaking at once, or a group of characters, then yeah, I would say it's better to do that.
Yeah, I guess my question was more focused not on format, but on how to make it sound natural or interesting when it comes to writing dialogue.
Oh, to develop like character voice?
Yeah.
That one's actually
Or moving plot along, that kind of thing.
that one's
Well,
actually
actually, this is a technique that I kind of discovered by accident, but I find it really useful to if you have a character that fits into like a pre-established like archetype or way of speaking, look up other characters that fit into that kind of personality or that kind of way of life and study how they speak.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So the way that I do it when it comes to that kind of stuff. Now, granted, I have had less to do with writing it for a script and more in the literary sense. So I may not have as much that you could portray it with in a visual manner. But as far as how I write it for my novel style writing and short stories and all that, whenever I have a character speak, rather than saying he said, she said, which, yes, there are places where it's fine to use those, but the word said is heavily overused. What I do is I describe, like, for example, I'll say something along the lines of retorted haughtily, or using different descriptors, because in the English language, there is a lot of different ways to say that somebody said something, and it'll describe not only how they said it, but like I also add like the frame of mind that they're in when they say it. So like angrily, haughtily, whispered, anxiously, things like that. And that way it tells the reader what's going on with the character and kind of gives them an idea of like how this conversation is going. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure how that would transfer into like script writing, But when you're writing in a short story or novel format, it's normally not a great idea to just say he said, she said. Like if it's just like a neutral conversation, then it's fine. But like, especially if there's any kind of emotion being pumped into this conversation, you want to tell the reader what that is.
Yeah, especially if it's just two characters in a scene. Like if it's 3 or more, you might need more description on who exactly is speaking. But if it's just 2 characters, you can just say who starts the conversation, and the readers will be able to pick up context clues from that.
Yeah, there's actually where you will see some writers where they'll actually like exclude who's talking if it's kind of more of a neutral conversation, and you'll just have character A speaks, character B speaks, and then just keep that format. The only time it really needs to change is if character C gets introduced or character A or B speaks out of turn.
Yeah, and actually, adding actions, like very very clear actions, can also denote how someone is speaking. Like if you say, person A is sort of slamming their books on the table, and then they are speaking, it could, it's very easy to imply how they are speaking by the way that they act, rather than saying they said this angrily or they bellowed. They just slam the books down on the table. That sets the mood right away.
I generally use those in tandem, where it's like the action and the how they're speaking, because it paints a more complete picture in my mind. Does that answer your question, Jack?
No. Oh, I was kind of more into the things like nuance and like characterization kind of thing. Again, not so much format type stuff. But again, I come from a screenwriting background, so it's not a like I don't worry about. It's like, oh, he said this, because it's just there. It's just the character name says something. But I was talking more about like how to. Oh yeah, go ahead.
You were focusing more on character voice, yeah.
I guess in that instance, you would need to like do writing for accents and things like that, or like speech mannerisms would definitely work into that. One thing I've always noticed about just watching people in general is they will have a word or phrase that they will repeat ad nauseum.
Yeah.
So having things like that would also help with characterizing a speaker. Honestly, a lot of that would depend on like the visual side of things, though, for screenwriting, because with what we were discussing just then, we don't have the luxury of a visual side of things. So there's a lot more that goes into the writing portion of it, whereas yours, it would be like things like accents, phrases and words that they would repeat, things that they would avoid saying, things that they would say. Like, for example, like, say you've got the one guy that just refuses to curse. That tells a small amount about the character compared to, say, the guy that curses up a storm. What was that, Lightning?
I was gonna say it's me, the guy who refuses to curse.
Yeah, and slang terms can also be used if they have much more formal way of speaking that tells you that this character is uptight, potentially, or like professional, Whereas if they use lots of slang or like, for example, Cyberpunk, I forget the number that comes after it. The Cyberpunk video game, they used
2077.
Thank you. They used a lot of localized slang for the time and place that they were in. So you would hear things like choom and other words that, while the reader could pick it up by context of like what was being said, there were certain people that didn't use words like that it made it feel more like this is this type of person, that's that type of person. So depending on what you're trying to do, finding out what kind of things would work as a slang term. If you're using somebody that's from like a southern style like country area, using words like y'all and ain't, because if you've noticed, people from down south in the Americas will ram words together to where you've got these monstrosity type contractions.
I'm writing a character who's from Texas, and I'm trying to sneak in some southern accent.
Yeah,
And
using words like y'all,
Yeah.
ain't, and if you listen,
I write y'all all the time, so I'm fine with that.
also like listening to some of the characters from the kind of like ethnicity, background, whatever that you're looking for, also helps a lot, so that you know what they should sound like.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the advice I gave to begin with.
Yes, that.
Yeah. Study characters that fit the archetype you're going for.
I got there eventually too. It's just my thought process was very roundabout. Does that answer your question a bit better, Jack?
A bit better. I was just curious on what your guys' strategies were for dealing with that.
I feel like because most of us are
Trying to
fanfic,
eliminate exposition, that kind of thing.
eliminating exposition is a whole nother ballpark. I feel like
That was kind of more I was aiming at, I guess. But yeah. Sorry, I didn't word my question very well.
Yeah, because those are two very different questions. Because exposition for writing and dialogue are two very different things. Because exposition is the character telling you how the world works in one big text dump, whereas dialogue is just two characters talking to each other. You can work in
You can get
exposition
information from characters talking to each other.
Well, yeah, if it's a natural conversation, though, your reader may not even notice that it's an exposition dump. Exposition dump's a bad way to say it, because an exposition dump is generally that one really smart character that stands up in front of everybody and tells them all the things that they should already know.
Oh,
Yeah, that is expedition dumping, at least for writing, and often for other mediums as well, though it may look a bit different.
Yeah, making sure that exposition is like natural in dialogue. That's been something that I've had to contend with a lot.
It's a lot.
And, I know that there's that old cliche of the "as you know" dialogue.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
you know the one.
as
know
you
the one.
know.
So
But the slightly less low-hanging fruit, but still like making sense in context. One is having a character that genuinely doesn't know that information be told that information.
the amateur outside
by
the
someone
character.
who yeah. It's as you should know. Like someone who is outside of that information. Or if it's coming up in dialogue between two other characters who both know that information. Maybe it's like what did I do? I did banter. That's what I did. I did banter, and it's things that the characters know about each other, but they're kind of teasing each other about it. So, it's kind of said in a joking way.
That is one way to do it. I kind of prefer the outside looking in kind of characters because it tends to be easier to justify without having to find a reason for why they would know that, like why they would be talking about this specific thing that the reader needs to know, but nobody else actually needs to be told about it because they live here.
Yeah.
What I'm doing right now is I'm kind of doing both. I have the prologue to my current story is from the point of view of a specific character, and they're getting a prophecy. And the way I wrote it is, it's like, sorry. The way I try to write it is like as if this prologue would fit halfway through the story. People are already supposed to know all this information, so I don't have to go super in depth. However, I have to put in just enough to get the reader hooked. I have to write it in a way that they understand it, but also that leaves this little mystery. Like, what are they talking about? Or what are they mentioning? And also, so that if you reread the story, you'll notice these subtle little details to this specific character. Because this is the only time we get to see inside of her head. And, like, the way she thinks. But then in chapter 1, I go to my main character, and he's brand new. He's stepping into this new world. And so he gets introduced to people who are going to explain how this world works for him. And I'm having him be a very curious character, so it's easier for, like, he's gonna be asking tons of questions because that's just how he is. That's his personality. And I'm gonna have characters react to it. Some are gonna get annoyed at his million questions and etc. But it's really interesting.
A fun thing you can do with that too is like have characters that are just like, no, I'm not going to tell you, and then just walk off. Because like everybody expects,
I should write that down.
Everybody expects that the character that is the audience foil is going to get all of the information they ask for, and then just having just random characters go, no, fuck you, I'm taking a nap or whatever.
One of my main characters, right? Basically, my protagonist's best friend is introduced by her smacking him in the face. That's basically the introduction. And like smacking him in the face and yelling at him for doing something wrong. And like grabbing him by the ear and dragging him all the way back to camp. It's really funny.
And if you're writing for something where it's like a professional environment, it's also really good to have like the mentor type characters where it's like the expo dump comes because of the fact that they're in a training facility of some sort or a training course.
Yeah, I have those. I already have his the person he's meant to look up to. I have him down. I have a bunch of things down for this. I just gotta find like.
There's always an obligation to kill the mentor, though.
Yeah,
you must.
He doesn't die, but he does leave the camp.
Oh, does he turn evil?
I do have. He does not turn evil, sadly. No.
They take him out back.
Because it's him. Because he has another. I don't want to spoil too much, but basically him and his girlfriend, they have their own like little team of a found family because they adopt this other camp member, this little girl that's in the camp that is should not be there, and they end up taking her under their wing, and like they leave, but they have to leave her there. But they still keep in contact. It's this like couple goals theme.
Okay. Anybody got anything else before I
I
go?
have to go.
Yeah, I had a
Sorry.
feeling.
Thank you so much, though, for having me.
I'm glad to have
Very-
you back on.
Yes, no, very fun.
We've got more stuff coming up. I've already announced the next schedule, so keep an eye out. Well, I think
Awesome.
it's been posted.
We'll do.
But yeah,
Yes, but yeah, sorry, I really have to go. I'm sorry.
later.
Thank you all.
Hi.
So yeah,
That there's now an empty space. I think we are going to wrap it up for the night, though. We're running up close to 2 hours, anyways.
yeah.
Let's see. Let me make sure. Ice, did we have any questions pop up, or still no
Questions,
questions?
people. We need questions.
Come on, I know some of y'all gotta have questions.
Hold on,
Were-
I'm asking
were
my
there any-
co-writer.
Were there any earlier that you can grab?
I've got a question for you guys if we don't have any in the chat.
If we haven't noticed already, I like to talk about this stuff, so I'm more than happy to answer.
I guess
I
I'll
mean,
just
that's
go
what
ahead
we're
and say
here
my
for.
question then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this might be a bit controversial, and I don't know how far you guys want to go with this subject, but when it comes to like dark themes in your story, or controversial themes I should say in quotes, do you feel are you guys willing to tackle those themes, or do you feel like it's not worth it, or I don't feel like
You're
I
talking
have
to a grimdark writer.
I know.
Yeah.
I was it was more for the other two gentlemen here.
You say this in the
It-
presence of the
it depends.
edgiest horse around.
I know.
Like, I am personally in love with tragedy stories. So, if it involves killing off a character and like having everyone else like react to it, my current MLP work in progress is a story where the entire idea is that at one point Twilight dies, and she's the first one of the main six to die. And it's basically everyone else's reaction and like the fall of the kingdom of Equestria. So
Yeah, that's funny.
if
'Cause
it involves,
I prefer doing the opposite, where she's immortal and all her friends die.
that's what I usually see. But then I remember seeing like a random Twitter post by one of the writers saying, because people kept saying like, "Oh, Twilight's gonna outlive her friends," and they replied, "No, Twilight would not outlive her friends." So I flipped the whole script upside down and was like, "She's the first one to go, and everyone else has to react to it." How she dies, no idea. Not the point. It's gonna remain a mystery throughout the whole story. If we have some theorists who want to try to figure out, go ahead. Please do my job for me.
Is that the Trotting On one that you wrote for my contest that I did?
Yeah.
You still
Yes. So trotting on his how to do is it's the first story. Chronologically, it's the first thing that happens. Right? Wait, no. Wait. So in the Divided We Fall is the entire like works. The prologue titled "The Fall of a Princess." This is not released yet. The prologue is the main six finding out that Twilight died. They're waiting for her. They're waiting. They're waiting for her to have a picnic, and she doesn't show up. And a royal guard has to go tell them, and like he can't. And it's a whole thing. So there's the prologue. Then Trotting on his how to do happens, which is Trixie finding it out from the newspaper and struggling to tell Starlight. And then it takes chapters 1 through 10 of The Valley We Fall. And if anyone is interested, again, my very first story was The Last Changeling. And that canonically happens at the very end of the story. It happens years later.
I am going to take a chance to plug my own stories after Proceleon gets a chance to answer.
Oh, thanks. Well, as far as dark themes go, what I'm doing with my fiction is I'm taking a lot of inspiration from how the actual show is structured and the content that it has in there. So there will at points be sort of themes that get brought up which do relate to that kind of more mature, I suppose you could say, more mature audience. Obviously being surrounded by Technicolor pony weirdos, but they are experiencing situations and feelings that do relate to quite dark things in the real world. Because can I say that? Yeah, I suppose the main theme that I want running through my fic is the theme of family. So there is. I'm gonna say there's one character whose family is not particularly present, and that's that I plan to get brought up quite a lot. And one of the characters, I'm Lightning Stripe, my Lightning Stripe,
Oh.
who is purple goober.
Let me.
And it's still buffering for me.
It says the stream is live on.
Back.
Are we back, everybody?
Are we back?
It's slow. It's buffering.
No clue what's going on right now. I know it's not an internet issue.
Oh, they're saying it's back. So apparently it's back, and it's
YouTube
problem.
is saying it's back.
Okay, so
we've got chat saying it's back.
Okay.
Yeah, YouTube is back. I got it to work. Yeah.
Wow, that.
Well, I got it.
Looking
to work,
at
not really,
it says that we're unstable on Twitch, but it looks like we're back there too.
Yeah, I do not know how much of that was missed.
I don't know what the problem is right now, but it is just like flipping its shit. We may not be able to answer those questions.
last 3 to 5 minutes. Oh, goody. Okay. Okay, so apparently Proceleon was talking. And
Something lightning stripe is mute. Not that lightning stripe, the other one.
oh, okay.
I think it's stabilized.
I think we're back.
We should be back.
It seeming
The stream is back. We just okay. So they did not.
Yeah,
so they did not.
YouTube seems back.
Yeah, YouTube
Yeah.
seems to be back. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know about Twitch.
So
Okay. So I'm communicating with my co-writer who's watching the stream right now, and she said that she didn't hear the fact that the other lightning stripe was mute.
Do I say that now?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, to reiterate. So I was saying that my lightning stripe, the purple one, has always been mute. That's always been part of her story. So I wanted a chapter or a segment dedicated to what her experience is like being mute and not being able to speak.
Yeah.
That was what I was saying.
So what I was going to go on with after that.
Which really makes it weird why I didn't bring that up in the dialogue section. Because
Yeah,
I don't need to write dialogue for her.
One of the things that I end up exploring a lot is very dark subject matter, whether it's the callous brutality of capitalism, the themes of surviving a SA incident, or just like the generalized idea that a character that is immortal would be very isolated, especially one that is actually like fully immortal and not just, oh, I live long. One that's especially lived for a extended period of time and has always been that way. So a creature that's never been in like Twilight's shoes where she's going to lose a bunch of friends, where the creatures around them are just fleeting like fireflies in their lifespan. They flicker around for a little bit and then they die.
Yeah.
I currently have in one of my campaigns, because this is where I get to express a lot of my writing stuff. One of the characters in the Lost Memory Second Chances campaign is currently grappling with the results of it's an NPC, not a player character, before anybody gets upset. With the results of someone taking advantage of her, as well as almost dying in the same instant because she was a magic user and they're frowned upon in the setting.
I love that.
It was one of many themes. One of my favorite things to play around with is known as either, some people will call it Lovecraftian horror, but the proper term is cosmic horror, where the idea is the universe is vast and uncalculable in its size and grandness, and you are nothing in it. Nothing cares about you. You just happen to be not even a minor inconvenience. It's like that one guy walking through his house and then he steps on a ant trail that he didn't even notice. Yeah, you are those ants. So that I play with that a lot, which also means that there's a lot of the storytelling type of stuff where it's like, yes, the universe is going to move without you, whether you try to stop it or not, and the villains will often say things along the lines of "nothing you do matters. You will change nothing. Nothing will ever happen due to your actions," kind of deal. And
Hopelessness.
Themes of hopelessness, themes of weakness, and things like that. And I've broken a few players with that one because not everybody's equipped to deal with the idea of cosmic horror and the themes around it. So yeah, I very much love my dark storytelling, and it is a very easy thing for me to do, especially since I don't normally have issues with it. Like, there are times where I will dial it back for certain players, but if you ever read any of my stuff, especially like right now, I'm doing the writing for one called Of Rage and Revenge, which is a revenge story, and in the first like page or two, I kill off one of my personal OCs, as part of the story. So I'm also not above killing characters that everybody's like, oh, but like that's your character. You made that. It's like, yeah. And I can break it too.
Plot armor blah. I can't English. Plot armor just got thrown through the window.
But yeah. What was that question that you had for us?
Yes. Yeah. So my co-writer was asking, how do you guys tackle character flaws and connect them to the main story, to the main theme? I mean.
So we're gonna make Venture do the answering of this one first, since he's been sitting in the corner.
Sure. I mean, I have. I guess. I mean, sometimes I don't think they have to tie in, but I think it's also important. Like, if example, the story I'm currently writing. Sorry, what was the question one more time?
How do you tackle character flaws and make them connect to the main theme?
Well, here's one. The story I'm currently working on, and I'm not going to spoil too much about it, but it's a half detective noir / half political thriller. And one of the main characters is Chancellor / Prime Minister of a nation, and one of his flaws is that he tries to please everyone. When look, in politics, that's virtually impossible. So he's basically a doormat, and it ties into the story of, well, the theme of even as a leader of a powerful nation, and yes, compromise is important, you also need to learn to stand up for yourself. Like, you won't please anyone by trying to please everyone. There's no such thing as pleasing everyone.
I believe there's
But
an Aesop's fable that goes over that idea too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is, but that's an example on my end.
Other lightning strike.
Who is the other?
That would
Whichever
be
one
you.
didn't speak first.
Yeah, so that would be you.
I said it would
Yes,
get
Proceleon.
confusing.
Proceleon, you go.
It is a little bit tricky to focus on like character flaws connecting to the main story when like your main theme of the fic is family, which is not inherently connected to the main cast, but it's more to do with like character relations and how they react to different situations, different family situations. But I will say that they do cause those family situations do cause a lot of I suppose character flaws that I'm planning to explore. Yeah, this is a particularly hard question for me. I don't know why.
Do you have any lone wolf characters?
Oh, do I? Sorry.
What
I have
of the
way too
main
many.
of the main cast or what?
Yeah, ones that either don't see the rest of them as family, or are attempting to go off and do their own thing despite the best efforts of the rest of the group.
Well, like I said, I do have. I'm just looking at the main guys here. Maybe 3 that have like either estranged or not present family members that would present some difficulties for them. One of them doesn't even know if she has a family.
We love that.
But
So
my-
that definitely plays a lot into her story. I know that.
my thing, like, if you have a family as a like the story thing is family, the flaws that you would want them overcoming through that is things like being able to work with others and trust others and things like that.
Yeah, true.
Um, that all you wanted to say, or do you got more to say?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay. So for me, most of the time, I don't view it as tying it into the story as so much as part of the story is them overcoming their flaws. Like, the flaws will still be there, but in theory, they aren't like hindering them anymore so much as they were before. Like, for example, with Shadow of the Dark Sun, my primary character, Shadowfire, which is the alicorn that you guys know me for, he is going to need to learn to not only trust people outside of the two people he showed up with, but also be able to learn how to connect and like actually interact with others in a way that is not essentially open hostility. Because he's an entity that lives eternally, and so he's never had to make the effort to like connect with anyone. But since I treat alicorns as immortal, he actually finds people he has to learn to connect to and trust. And I plan to like use Luna for that because the two of them would be the closest to like in similarities. You know, one of them went evil. Both of them have been ostracized. One of them is just overall evil and evil looking. Things like that, where he's like trying to learn to fit into essentially a new world, but is having trouble following their rules, for lack of a better way to say it, and is learning to function like what it would be considered a normal member of society to some extent, where he's having to learn things that everybody else would take for granted. Things like that. A lot of the character flaws would be things like aggression towards others and the inability to connect with anyone because he's never had to or never wanted to, because everything else just lives for such a short amount of time. Why waste the effort? In other words, he doesn't know how to make friends.
He needs to watch a certain show about pastel-colored horses.
Funnily enough, within his canon, the reason that he is in the My Little Pony multiverse is because he was peeking in at them and went, I want to live there. That looks peaceful.
I want to be there.
Yeah, his big thing is he's always wanted to be left alone and to live somewhere peaceful, which he never gets, but, you know.
Of course.
Other than that, I think that's all we have time for tonight. It kind of turned into
questions.
Well, we don't really have any more questions. And it's already kind of turned into a two-parter unintentionally. Thank you, Streamlabs. But other than that, for those of you that may or may not still be watching, if you enjoyed that, would like to see more of it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, follow on Twitch, all that good stuff. If you want to show further support, there's the Discord, which is free to enter. You hop in and hang out with everybody that's in there. We always welcome other people to join and hang out with some of the people will be hanging around in the server, so you can say hi to Venture, Lightning, and maybe even other Lightning. I'll let you decide which one I'm talking about.
Lightning times 2.
Indeed.
You'll
Lightning
also
and
be-
imposter lightning.
Which one's the imposter? We'll never know. I also do regular game streams throughout the week. Thursdays now, I'm going to be doing a stream specifically for indie horror from the website itch.io. So if you guys got recommendations you'd like me to try, I prefer if they be free or really cheap, but I will at least give it a try up until the point that it has screamed its 7,000th scream with no payoff, and then I quit because it's hurting my ears so badly. All jokes aside, some of those were actually really good games, so be sure to check out the VOD for that.
Better get finishing mine then.
I mean, if you give me a game to play, then I will try it as long as it is well, as long as it is safe for work for the most part. In the you know what I mean.
It's a pony game, of course it'll be.
You say that like there aren't. You know what?
You'd
I'm just
be
gonna
surprised.
I'm gonna
Oh,
stop
oh.
talking before.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Oh, right. Yeah.
anyways, other than that, a big thank you to my priest tier patrons, Cameo Shadowless, Scarmix, and Ice Crystal. Couldn't be doing this without y'all's help, along with all the subscribers on Twitch. Holy crap, there's a lot more of you than there used to be. We'll see how many of you stick around. Other than that, everybody have a great evening. We'll see you Sunday. I will also be streaming on Twitch for Saturday. For they're going to have some sort of Metallica event on Fortnite, and I'm going to be streaming that with some friends. But other than that, everybody have a great evening, and don't forget to drink water.
Bye.